Hello and welcome! It is Super League Championship time. I'm Randy Buehler. I'm joined by Shaun McLaren. We are very excited to bring the first Super League Championship to you guys. How you feeling about tonight, Shaun?
Pretty good. Looking forward to it. Have some interesting decks and some good matchups. Should be fun.
Definitely. Yeah, not a lot of Dark Jeskai. I think that was the fear. Maybe more green-white Megamorph than anything else, or maybe green-white not so Megamorph in the case of some of the lists. All right, we'll get to that in a second, but first I want to start out by making sure that everybody knows what we're up to, understands the format. We are playing standard decks for the championship. I know that we've spent the last couple of months feeding in winners from Vintage Super League, from Modern Super League, and from Standard Super League. We took our 12 players and divided them up into three groups of 4 players each. So we can put the division into groups up on the screen for you. Totally random. It wasn't like the Standard Super League where we kind of themed the groups. We just rolled it randomly, and nobody knew who was going to be in their group until after they had submitted their deck list. But here's where we wound up. Li Shitian, Paul Rietzel, Josh Untitled, Chris PIKULA in what looks to me like the toughest group. I don't know if you have an opinion on that, Shaun.
Well, I mean, I would be happy with repair. I'm not liking my matchup. That's what I'm focused on.
You're afraid of Gabby Sparks, is what you're telling me. Standard Super League champion gonna take down the Modern Super League champion.
Yeah, I mean, can't this format be modern as well?
Fair enough. The Eldrazi ramp deck that Gabby's running is certainly sweet. The other group, Cedric Phillips, Paul Cheon, myself, and Eric Froelich. We've actually got the Vintage Super League Finals rematch between Efro and I. Yeah, I mean, this should be a lot of fun. So these are the groups. And now for the next 3 weeks, it's a round robin inside each group. So tonight, Shaun plays Gabby. In the next 2 weeks, he'll play Kenji and Patrick. And at the end of 3 weeks, once everybody inside the group has played everybody else in the group, we're going to see who won. And the top 2 from each group will advance to the playoffs. So that's your group stage. Once we do get to those top 2 advancing to the playoffs, you can see there's 3 groups. So that's going to be 6 players. There will be 2 buys awarded in that playoff bracket. So whichever 2 of the 3 group winners have the best record will get a free win. Essentially, they get advanced into the semifinals. And that playoff show will take place all at once.
Yeah, it's a good format. It gives everyone a chance to play. Lets it all be decided on the battlefield, basically.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's essentially the same structure we used for Standard Super League, only we did it randomly. I think it works pretty well if you've got 4 weeks and you want to try to sort a group of players. I like the way the round robin lets everybody play everybody and kind of, see how that narrative of the group structure is going to evolve over a couple of weeks. But then we get the cool playoff show at the end of it too. So
yeah, I also like that the people advancing get to repick their decks. That's a nice feature. It also adds a extra level of like metagaming. Are they gonna pick the same deck? Are they gonna play something that beats whatever or beats the deck that they lost to or that their opponent is likely going to be playing? So that should be cool too.
Right. So everyone submitted their deck for the group stage, and that'll play out over the next 3 weeks. So Gabby's on Eldrazi for 3 weeks, whether she decides she likes the deck or not. I'm stuck with the Utarka Red, even though I guess my bad matchup is this week. I hit the Dark Jeskai list. My other 2 matchups might be all right. But yeah, when we get to the playoff show, those last 6 do get new decks for that last playoff show. So that is the structure. That's what we're going to be doing for the next 4 weeks. At the end of those 4 weeks, by the way, Vintage Super League on the horizon. So I know I've had a lot of people who have been looking forward to watching some Vintage. That'll be a play-in tournament. It'll be a full round robin, the whole 9 weeks that we've done in the past for that regular season into the playoffs. So that's coming. But for 4 weeks, we're hanging out in Battle for Zendikar Standard.
Nice.
Now,
good.
You were mentioning all the green-white decks. I know that you're playing a take on green-white. We've also got Patrick DICKMANN playing a take on green-white. Chris PIKULA has kind of the BBD version of the green-white deck. Patrick's is the one that Brad Nelson took to top 4 in the mocks. What is going on with all these green-white decks? I mean, why did you wind up there, for example?
I think people are sort of leaning towards green-white because it's sort of the best deck against the other best decks kind of thing. It has a pretty good Utarka Red matchup, a pretty good Jeskai matchup, a pretty good Abzan matchup. it's kind of the most value based, so it's going to play the best in the late game out of all those decks, and it has a lot of good threats and some of the most powerful cards in the format, like Gideon, obviously. Nissa is good. They're both planeswalkers, so they can generate a lot of value in the mid game and the late game.
Now, so you like the green-white matchup against Jeskai?
Yeah, I do. I think that's why I'm playing green-white over Jeskai. I think green-white is a little bit favored against Jeskai unless you sort of skew your Jeskai deck to beat green-white a bit more than I'm comfortable with.
So it's actually 2 tournaments in a row where you've gone away from your traditional Jeskai alliance.
Well, I played Jeskai at the Pro Tour, so I played Dark Jeskai at the Pro Tour. So
I guess that has to count.
Yeah, it's more in Modern. I also didn't play Jeskai, but at the Pro Tour I did. So I'm not. Don't worry, I'm still playing my minimum requirement for Jeskai.
Good to know. Is there a card you have to keep up a certain amount of reps to keep membership, or I don't know how that works?
You must cast Mantis Rider this many times a week.
But not tonight for you. And your take on green-white, I don't know if we actually have access to your deck list, but you don't have any of the Megamorph cards.
No, mine is just sort of all about the 4-drops. Like, I'm playing Rattleflaw Mystic and Retreat to Emiria and Gideon, so I'm just like trying to play a 4-drop on turn 2 is my primary game plan. Okay,
here's your deck list. So walk us through why this is the take on green-white that you like. It's all about the 4-drops?
Yeah, and the removal's really good. Like Silk Wrap, Stasis Snare, Quarantine Field, they're all just really good at removal spells as long as they aren't getting hit by too much enchantment hate. So this deck, like Wingmate Rock also is a great card against Jeskai. Like, they have a lot of trouble if Wingmate Rock resolves. So I'm trying to beat basically the other big decks right now and the mirror match, and I like the list. Rattleclaw Mystic really impressed me as a card. It's like I sort of tried it out and was just like, oh, it's never bad. It's been bad for me. Just always overperforms. And I'm like, why is this card good? It's just a 2/1 mana guy, but it's just always outperformed my expectations.
Fair enough. If we can put Patrick Dickmann's list up, we can see another take on green-white. Patrick, I know, had been having a lot of success with this deck last week. His version of green-white, which actually there's a little bit of blue. You see the Disdainful Strokes in the sideboard, and then just a little touch of blue here. He was having a lot of success with this deck last week, and I know that he then shared it with Brad Nelson, who damn near won the mocks with it on Saturday. I think he got knocked out in the top 4 of the mocks. So here you see the full Megamorph action, Den Protectors and Death Mist Raptors.
Yeah, and this deck's also really nice. Like, Knight of the White Orchid is something that's picking up a lot of popularity. I think his deck was so successful. Like, Dramoka's Command is a really good card with Knight of the White Orchid and Hangerback Walker and Death Mist Raptor. And so, like, against my deck, I have 1,000,000 enchantments, so Dramoka's Command is going to really punish me as well.
That makes sense. And Chris Pikula is in our first match. If we can look at Chris's deck list, we can see what we're looking. We're about 5 minutes away. We're starting to get the players seated, getting them ready. Chris has, he called it the BBD version of the deck, and O'Brien Brown Dwyn has had some success. Is this maybe a little more traditional version of what's been doing well for, most of a month at this point, right?
It's kind of traditional except for the Avatar of the Resolute. That was sort of tech discovered at the Pro Tour. And yeah, it's good against Jeskai. Like, it blocks Mantis Rider even if you don't have any creatures with +1/+1 counters, and it scales nicely into the late game as well.
That's a great point. Yeah, that Avatar of the Resolute does seem like the new tech here. I did a deck tech at the Pro Tour actually with Michael Majors, who was the guy who kind of had the first success at the Star City Open Series even before we got to the Pro Tour with Green White Megamorph. And Avatar was one of the things he'd added into the deck for the Pro Tour itself. So There you go. There's the sort of traditional, more straightforward version of the green white Megamorph deck. Chris's opponent in this first round, though, we talk about twists on familiar archetypes. Josh Utter-Leyton has got to be in heaven right now. This is a man who likes to play Jeskai maybe even more than you do, and it's actually good right now.
I'm jealous. This deck looks really sweet. Like I tried getting the Magmatic Insight combo to work. It's so good with Monastery Mentor. On turn 4, you get to draw 2 and make a prowess guy. And the strength of this deck is it just like churns through its cards. It draws so many cards. Magmatic Insight is so good with Treasure Cruise and Jace's Bryn's Prodigy. It allows you to flip an early Jace and cast a really early Treasure Cruise and just like churn through your entire deck.
Nice. And so I guess this list is splashing just a touch of black, right? It does have the 2 Murderous Cut and the 1 Kolaghan's Command. No Crackling Dooms, no Tassigurs, but there is a very slight black splash here.
Yeah, it's a very unique list. Like it looks good on paper. So Magmatic Insight can be a tricky card, though. Like if in the early game, if you're low on, it's really annoying to have it. Like if you say have 3 lands and you're contemplating whether to cast Magmatic Insight or you're just stuck with like 2 in hand and you're mana screwed, it feels bad.
Makes sense. So the first match is going to be Josh Utter-Leyton against Chris PIKULA. Now, how do you think that matchup plays out? Green-white versus the Jeskai. We talked about it a little bit, but go ahead.
Monastery Mentor is going to get a chance to shine against Green-white. Like, if you untap and have Monastery Mentor, the game is like over against Green-white. So they really, really need an answer to that immediately, basically. Otherwise, the game's over. And they're also stretched trying to kill like an early Jace or Seeker of the Way as well.
Okay. So you like green-white against the Dark Jeskai lists that have been running rampant over the format, but the Mentor Jeskai actually sort of re-trumps?
Yeah, like Crackling Doom isn't that effective against green-white, especially if they're resolving Gideon or like a retreat or something like that, or buying back Deathmist Raptors with Den Protector. But when your game plan is to get Monastery Mentor going, that can just take over the game, and green-white doesn't necessarily have a good answer to that.
Makes sense to me, and sounds like our players are ready. So stay tuned, guys. Enough talking about Magic. Let's go play some. We will be right back with match number 1 of the Super League Championship.